Recently, in a survey by the Department of Science and Innovation and Technology in 2024, about 50% of UK businesses are suffering on an annual basis some kind of cybersecurity breach. It was also noted in that same survey that 52% of primary schools suffered a breach of some description, and 71% of secondary schools. In this video, we kind of want to explore what's happening in cybersecurity in education. I'm Will Stead from Virtue Technologies, and I'm here with Paul Roby.
And I'm the Head of Projects and Security and Rapid Response for Virtue Technologies.
Cool. Welcome, Paul. First question we want to explore is, how often are we seeing cyber incidents in schools?
Typically at Virtue, with all our managed service engineers and the customers that we support, we've seen between 6 and 8 compromises a week that vary from ransom attacks to password compromises to malicious emails being received.
Okay, so it's quite a lot then, isn't it? And why is it higher, do we think, than other industries?
I think more so than anything, it's the backbone of the UK, including power and electricity and schools and NHS. And there is something that if criminals can disrupt school and education, it means that there's no learning happening. And it also actually highlights that schools struggle with the amount of support that's required around cybersecurity and the funding that's actually available to secure, where in businesses you would have significantly larger teams, where in secondary and primary schools you either have a visit a week or in some cases 2 to 3 senior technicians on site within the secondary.
The key thing here is it's not necessarily about money, it's more about disruption.
Absolutely, it's all to do with disruption. And what's critical as well is the data that schools actually have as well. So within dark web, anything that's got a monetary value, it's not always about the disruption. Some of it's financial. If you can take your personal information, sort of your names, email addresses, passport details, bank account details, then this actually is sellable on the dark web, but actually feeds into a larger pool of information about everyone online.
Okay, cool. So just going back to, we're seeing several incidents a week now. What sort of attacks are we regularly seeing?
We typically see large attacks on remote desktop gateways, and that's what allows people to log in from home from different devices. And those devices are vulnerable usually because they've not got remote desktop with multi-factor authentication enabled, and also the devices that they're using at home aren't protected because they're personal devices. So that allows someone to infect the systems. And we're seeing social engineering, which is where emails are sent to school. Someone clicks on a link, fill out some details, and it can be that someone actually works with a call center, as if they were a call center. They're clicking on links, they ask for support, and then that allows them to bypass multi-factor authentication. It allows them to steal credentials, and it allows an attacker to compromise your system.
And we're seeing the whole range of that attack, from people having a bit of a nibble trying to get in through to an actual ransomware attack that's happening. Absolutely.
Obviously, the early way to catch it is that you might first initially see people where you may come across where a school have sent out spam emails and it's come from one person's mailbox. And sometimes, if we're fortunate enough, if the schools have got in place email filtering, that we will actually capture that before it happens. But in other instances where passwords are not acknowledged and not reset, then that actually opens up to further escalation of attacks. But the severity of where we pick that up depends on actions of the school, remediation that's happened to prevent previously, and how the school acts upon the attacks and treats them.
So we partner quite extensively with Sophos, as you know, and I remember Sophos telling me quite recently that when they're dealing with a cyber incident, the signs have been there for weeks earlier, traditionally, and it's not just something that happens in one day or in 1 hour. Is that something you've seen in your experience?
Yeah, usually a criminal is in for several weeks beforehand, and we actually often find that when we pick up on an attack, that sometimes low priority alerts have been flagged on Sophos. But what we discussed earlier was that schools are actively patching machines, attending the classroom, and the attention can obviously be drawn away from actually monitoring the systems that are there to protect you.
Okay. So once a school gets some kind of attack, what sort of disruption do these attacks cause in the schools?
Typically, an attack will, if it was a password, if we found that a data breach happened with a password and Office 365 would be someone signed into that. Even on the most basic form, if it was to reset passwords and it was, say, a secondary school, that can take up to 1 week to 2 weeks to actually get all staff, all pupils reset. And when we say reset passwords, it's not just your email accounts, it's your computer accounts, it can be your switches, your CCTV, and it's also about resetting your passwords to maybe a MIS, Arbor, because quite frequently we find that when someone has compromised one system, they regularly reuse the password on other systems too.
Yeah, okay. So obviously there's a lot of stuff that schools need to consider when protecting themselves against any kind of cyber attack. But if they're going to do 3 things, what top 3 things would you recommend that they do?
I would recommend that schools follow the NCSE National Cybersecurity Centre training, which the DFE recommend. One of our largest challenges is that education appears to be key to preventing attacks in schools.
The good thing about that NCSE training is it's written specifically for schools, and that's a great attribute to have. So other courses might be a bit more generic. It's also one of the requirements of the RPA, if I remember rightly, that you do that specific training course.
Yes, and it follows through phishing, identifying emails, alerting, how to raise something that you're concerned about, and it also gives you the awareness that when you see something's not secure, that you should flag it or add it to sort of your junk and delete.
Yeah. Okay. Second thing,
I would recommend multi-factor authentication. That's where we either can use a phone, but there's everyone worries about phones. So multi-factor authentication isn't always about phones. It's different factors. It could be facial recognition on a phone, on a computer, as well as your password for your computer, or it can be maybe blocking someone from coming outside the UK. So it could be you're only allowed to sign inside a country, inside the UK, and not outside. But these multi-factors help and protect your systems so that it's not just down to a password that's guessable.
Yeah. Okay. And thirdly,
3-2-1 backup, which is also another DFE recommendation. Also, 3-2-1 is where you have multiple medias on site, so you make sure that you back up maybe to local storage, and then you also look at a copy in the cloud somewhere else or stored up with another provider. And then the third part of it is where it becomes immutable, which means that it's offline, so that if someone was to get into your systems and encrypt your systems, there is still a copy that a criminal can't touch.
Yeah, really important stuff. Thanks for your time today, Paul.
Thanks, Will.
And yeah, see you soon.
See you soon.